So, good morning, everyone. I want to dedicate the שיעור לרפואת אוהד אהרון יצחק בן אליס. And this morning we're going to talk about the 7 keys of optimum health. This is Amotzi.
It is Amotzi.
Yeah.
I can't see exact much.
So when we talk about health, there are few areas that every single one of them is crucial to gain optimum health. You can't and we can't focus on just one of them, which is the majority of people, when they think about health, they usually think about exercise, gym, or nutrition, lettuce and carrots and things like that. But actually, health is something that is a little bit more thorough, and it's important to understand that all these 7 keys are equally important. I just want to remind us all that that health is something that is natural. You don't need to make an effort to be healthy, but you need to make an effort to ruin or stop the force of health that is embedded in every single one of us. Health health gonna get affected every time we are not obeying the rules of nature, because there is only one disease and there is only one cure. So this one disease is not obeying the rules of nature, the laws of nature, and this one cure is actually bringing ourselves back into these living harmonically with these laws of nature. So it's always something that we have done. Once a baby is born and he doesn't have any birth defects, God forbid, everything that goes on with that baby onwards, it's man-made. So it's something that some people find it liberating, because they say, yay, I can do something, I can learn, I can take control, I don't have to be afraid of aliens and plagues and things that are external to me. I can just educate myself, believing that these laws are not something that it's impossible. We know in the Torah the laws are basic. You don't have to be rich. It doesn't cost money to be healthy, and it's for every person. It's for laymen. It's not for the priests. So for some people it can be very liberating and comforting, and the majority of the people will probably get appalled by these news, because it means taking responsibility and has nobody else to blame. And we know in the Garden of Eden, the first sin was blaming. So Eve blamed the snake and Adam blamed Eve. So if we take, this is something that is embedded in our nefesh, that we like to pass on the back, and we find it very, very comforting. Then we don't need to deal with stuff, and we don't need to confront with things, and we don't need to change. And changing habits, it's something that is very, very difficult for most people, even if they know that it's good for them. So that's one of the problems. So these 7 keys areas we need to pay attention to create the highest level of health and vitality possible. That's including optimal diet, water fasting when it's needed, but we're not going to discuss water fasting, cleansing the body, optimal environment, air, water, exercise, activity, rest, sleep, sunlight, and emotional poise. So what I'm aiming to do is I'm going to touch every Wednesday. I'm going to touch one of those, or if I'll be a bit more quick, I'm going to just even combine both 2 factors in 1 hour until we finish the whole 7 keys. So today we're gonna, and I just want to make another point clear, that I'm gonna talk about optimum health. Okay, it's not something that even I can commit to at the moment. I'm talking about the best level of health one can achieve. But the good news is that it's not a package deal. So every time you make adjustment or improvements in those areas, you will experience better health. Okay, so if I'm going to talk today I'm going to talk about nutrition, and what I'm going to say will sound very far away from what you're willing to do at the moment. Don't get discouraged, because it's a process, it's a gradual journey, and you just need to take it one step at a time. And you're gonna benefit anyway, because as long as it's better than what you're doing at the moment, you're gonna experience better health. Okay, so we're talking about like the 100%, the cleanest form of life. Sometimes the obstacles are objective and it's nothing to do with us, and sometimes it's something to do with really what we are happy and willing to take on board. Okay, so the first factor in these seven keys is we're going to start with nutrition, because it's something that we're really dealing with at least 3 times a day, and it's something that I've heard a cardiologist is 98 years old, and he said that he's vegan. He lived most of his life as vegan, and he said that he can talk to people about their sex life, about the political views, about so many things. But when it gets to nutrition, they get very, very protective, and they grow these canine teeth all of a sudden, and it becomes more impersonal than intimate life. So people, because there's so much emotions behind food, it's it's what my mother gave me, it's what we had at home, it's those lots of images and memories. It's very, very deeply embedded in our memory, and we attach it to a lot of things. So I'm inviting you to detach yourself and to understand that, first of all, food it has to be nutritious than anything else. I mean, if you gain more things through it, that's absolutely great. But first of all, the aim, the goal, the main goal of food is to nourish you. Okay. Now, another important thing, and surprisingly, very, very different than what we used to think, that when people put something through that hole here, they can create this amazing meal with beautiful variety of, think about the healthiest thing you can imagine: organic, fresh, raw, right combination. They have this mindset in their mind that everything that goes through here is, if you put it through your throat, it means that you get it into the cells, and that's completely not the case. When we're thinking about natural hygiene in terms of nutrition, Shelton says we're thinking about the cellular level. We're thinking about every cell. So what we're thinking about is it really what's going to happen when I'm going to consume this? Are my cells going to really get that? Because it has to be digested, it has to be absorbed, it has to be assimilated. My body has to do all these things in order to, at the end, get nourished. So there are a lot of things that can go wrong along that way. And the fact that I just consumed it doesn't guarantee anything about nutrition. I'm sure you all heard about people with anemia, but they still have lots of meat. So they're not even vegan, and anemia is not a vegan's disease. And B12 deficiency, it's not a vegan disease. It happens in people who eat meat as well. Another interesting fact is Lauren Lockman, who is running the Tanglewood Center in Costa Rica, who I learned a lot from. I found his explanations are so simple to understand and so accurately and so clever. He says that he sees during fasts with people that came with nutritional deficiency during the fast while consuming zero, the deficiency has gone away. So that means those minerals were hidden somewhere in their body, but the body didn't have the access to utilize them. And that's, that's very relieving. That's very it's marvelous to understand how the body works, and because we have so much power and control, we can just literally stand in the way in so many ways, that even this simple thing of thinking that if you consume things, that's one of the reasons why I don't encourage people to take supplements. Because first, get your body clean. We say that if the body is clean and efficient, it will do everything that needs to be. You will just have the right food. The body will be able to utilize. If the body is not efficient, taking supplement is not really dealing with the cause, because the cause was the body is not being efficient, and you need to remove the barrier or allow the body to go back to full efficiency. But you know that in our society we tend to have quick fix, and sadly the method, the system of how medicine work in the conventional medicine, at least, is not about health. It's about turning off fires. It's about treating symptoms. So the symptoms, I have iron deficiency. Nobody asks, why do you have iron deficiency? Let's say maybe you're not efficient, it's there in your cells, but you don't have access to it. Maybe you're not sleeping enough, maybe you have a lot of diarrhea, maybe you're losing a lot of blood. I mean, a lot of people with iron deficiency has to do with not enough rest, because one of the things that people don't know is absorbing food, absorbing minerals and nutrients happen while you're asleep. In the daytime, when you're eating, you are digesting. But the actual absorbment, when you actually absorb these nutrients into your blood, into your cells, happens when you're asleep, because we do bind to a biological clock. So like nurses or people who work night shifts, a lot of systems in their body are not functioning properly, and we must suspect that even the nutritional levels are not as perfect as if they were operate, because we're not nocturnal animals, so we can't really force our nature to do anything else. Okay, so absorption happens while you're asleep. Now, there are tons of millions of diets all over the planet. There's so many books. I mean, there's very little agreement and millions of ways. I'm just gonna refer today to the diet that we find that it's the best diet for our species. And don't get discouraged if you don't think that you can stick to it at the moment. But any little change that you are willing to embrace is going to be beneficial for you. So when we're talking about diet as one of the keys, we're talking about a raw, fresh, vegan diet. This is the optimal diet for our species, which contains all the fruits and all the vegetables, as long as you consume them without any manipulations. You don't have to sprout them, you don't have to cook them, you don't have to steam them. Some things are like onion, for instance. You can't eat an onion like this because it's very, very spicy. So you steam it, so all the acid goes away and becomes sweet. So when we're talking about the optimal diet, we're talking about having the food in its raw state without any manipulation to that food. We're talking about ripe vegetables and ripe fruit, and I'm saying this, it looks like it's useless information, but from my experience, I heard people not enjoying fruits, and I realized at the end that they just don't know how to eat ripe fruit. They eat fruit that is not ripe. Pears has to be sweet and they shouldn't be crunchy. If a pear is crunchy, it's not ripe. Melon has to be completely sweet. Avocado, we know that it's disaster if you eat it when it's not ripe. It's just disgusting. So some fruit are not, and they're still bearable. Like, people can have a green banana. Yeah, it's not as yuck as a non-ripe avocado. So that gray area can camouflage the fact that it's unhealthy. So when you're thinking about pear and you're thinking about melons, or sometimes even citrus fruit are not ripe and they're still being picked and they can ripen outside, off the tree, off the refrigerator. Tomatoes, we know sometimes I buy tomatoes and they're not ripe even though they're completely red. So I leave them out for a little while. And I want to emphasize the risks of eating food that is not ripe. It's not just it's not tasty. It's like having a premature baby and expecting it to function independently. The nutrients and all the compounds in those foods, there can only be utilized and can only be available to our consumptions only if they're completely ripe. Now the view of food is dichotomic. It's either helping you to build tissues and to gain energy, or it's toxic to you. There's no gray area, and I know it's for some people it's really annoying to hear those news. There is nothing you can put through your throat and say, well, it's not going to harm me. I know it's not really healthy, but it's not going to do any harm. This is a lie. Okay, in terms of food, everything that you put through that system is creating something. It's not a dead desert. It's an active, live, complicated system. So the body has to juggle with whatever you do. So it's either helping you, and that actually applies to all the 7 keys. Everything that you do in life is either helping you in a way to gain health or pushing you away from health. Everything. It is black and white. Sometimes the damage is so minor that we can't notice it. Sometimes the damage is long term, so we can't really connect the dots and say, oh, it's because I did this. And we don't need to be geniuses and inspectors and detectives and doctors to know that. We know about cigarettes. People can smoke for 20 years and still don't develop lung cancer, and they still can. I see people cycle with cigarettes. So, we can abuse the body to the core. We can do really vicious things to the body, and that's the tolerance, the length, this amplitude of tolerance that the body has can be very, very misleading, and we can take advantage of it and getting to the wrong conclusions. Okay? So it's very, very important to understand how the body works and how the system works, because we can read the map in a completely distorted way and come to devastating conclusion. And actually, this is what the majority of the people are thinking. This is the paradigm. This is the pattern of thinking that most of the people are living by. When I talk to people who never heard about natural hygiene, they're just waiting for me to finish so they can run away, because this nonsense has nothing to do with that they have been learning all their life, and they've learned a thing or two. It's because most of the people, they don't pay attention to those little things, what I've said about eating ripe. I met a lady once, and she met me in the airport, and she was very fascinated with me being vegan, because I was just carrying a bag that somebody bought me about that says that I love animals, that's why I don't eat them. So that started a conversation, because her grandson just turned vegan, and she just thought I'm going to be a good conversation throughout the flight. And while we were waiting at the gate, she wanted to be, just friendly, so she offered me a banana. And she was very interested, also because of the sad fact that she was diagnosed with diabetes, and she was very worried. And she offered me, she was taking out 2 bananas from her bag, and she was just looking at them, and then she said, "You have that, and I'll have the green one because I am diabetic." So she knows
Less sweet.
less sugar, it's less harmful. So it makes sense to get into that conclusion, because when you're thinking about diabetes, you're thinking about sugar, which is completely wrong. I mean, diabetes is not just from sugar; it's from excess of sugar, stress, oil, fats, everything, protein. It doesn't have to be just sugar. And on the contrary, we know that fruit have loads of sugar, and in natural hygiene we help people get off medication and get back to normal, and reverse diabetes with fruit being their major portion of their meal. So it's not about the sugar, it's about the excess, the rubbish, the garbage that the body can't deal with. That's diabetes. So she connected 2 dots together, sugar and non-ripe banana, and she made a conclusion. So as I said, these things can be devastating, because what she did in that meal, she didn't nourish herself at all. She added more toxins into the body, so that means that the digesting system now has extra burden, no nutrition, and this meal just enter up in a minus, less healthy than she was before the meal. And this is the worst thing you want to do when you're unhealthy. You just want to think about how I'm gonna get more healthy in every aspect that I can. But people do make these calculations, and because they are basing their theories on wrong methods and poor data and really poor understanding of the basics, that's why they don't get better. They're just getting worse and worse and worse. So we're talking about ripe fruit, ripe vegetables, not processed. And this is basically what the ideal raw vegan is. I can't do that at the moment. There are some days that I can. I know I'm not lying to myself, saying to myself that because I can't do it, then it's not the best one. I know it's the best one, because when I did stick to it, I felt amazingly. So you can do it for a day or two. You can try. At least when the weather is nice, it's easier to eat fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. You have much more energy, you feel lighter, and you will be shocked how little actually we do need to eat. We need to eat very, very little. I mean, way less than what most of us eat usually. And so we can talk about hunger, because a lot of people say, I need to feel full when I finish my meal. I need to feel full, that I don't want to have anything else. So we can talk about hunger and being satiated. Lauren Lockman gives a funny example. He says, if you had a meal, and at the end of the meal you see somebody in the window trying to steal your car, and you can't chase and catch him, then you probably ate too much or the wrong food. So when you're finishing a meal and you feel tired, you're feeling less tired than you were before, then it meant that you either ate too much, the wrong combination, or the wrong food. I'm just reminding us that the Rambam said that a lot of good food is more harmful than small amount of bad food. And why is that? Because the whole point of natural hygiene and keeping yourself healthy is to not accumulate rubbish and garbage. When you're having lots of good food, then you are assuring yourself that you will have excess. Yeah? So in Hasidus we say, Kol mutar yeh bo etzev. Everything that is in excess, that is too much, it's going to create suffering. It's going to create sadness and problems and issues. So we learned in Judaism, Baal HaSulam says it's in one of his articles. He said that the secret of an action that is sustainable and powerful is accuracy. So that you can apply it to everything, and you can apply it to all the 7 keys. I mean, even sleep. If you sleep too much, it's going to harm you. If you sleep too little, it's going to harm you. If you talk too much, it's going to cause you issues and problems. If you talk too little, it's another problem. So it's an art to know, to identify what is the perfect ideal amount of everything. And this is what Baal HaSulam teaching us in one of his articles. This is this powerful thing called accuracy. Why? Because when you're accurate, you never suffering from any lack of anything. You never lack anything, and you're not in excess of anything. That's just so simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you pay attention to things, I mean, sometimes I remind myself and also to people that we need to think about every word we say, because we all sin. I mean, my rabbi said that 2 major sins are related to our mouth. It's words and food and eating. Yeah. So if we just, pay attention to what we say and how much we eat and what we eat, so many problems will be solved. And we learn it in Judaism all the time. It's just paying attention to things. It's being observant. It's to think about things, not run on automatic pilot all the time. So when we are talking back to the diet, we're talking about raw, fresh, ripe, plant-based food. So if you say, what about whole wheat bread or whole grains? It's still considered to be vegan diet. I mean, even donuts are vegan, and French fries are vegan, and falafel that is dipped in deep oil is vegan. But the word vegan is completely sold out. It's corrupted to the core. So when we're talking about veganism, according to Shelton, we're talking about fresh, raw. He's talking about vegetables and food and fruit. I don't think Shelton even agrees to nuts and seeds. He says it's very hard to digest nuts and seeds. But there are some people who are saying that we can't thrive on just fruit and vegetables only. So we need to. We're not in that stage anyway. So I'm sure none of us are gonna become raw vegan. So. Just try to stick to whole food as much as you can. Non-processed, whole food. Salt is not whole food because it's a mineral that comes from the soil, salt. And some people confuse sodium with salt. Salt is chloric sodium or sodium chloride. It's a combination of 2 elements together. And it's not organic. Organic means that it's a plant, that it grows. And our body doesn't know how to deal with non-organic elements. It's like chewing gold or chewing mercury or not mercury, but I mean, we do have silver and gold and manganese and magnesium. These are elements that are in the soil. Our body can't utilize elements like this. Therefore, we shouldn't consume them. We do need sodium, and sodium is abundantly in every plant that we eat. So we don't have to worry about sodium, but we do have to worry about sodium chloride, which is salt, because it's acid and it's literally eating our cartilages and our joints, and it's killing our kidneys if we overdo it. So and it also can cause other things like hypertension, and it's dehydration. It's something that the body needs to deal with, and it's something that the body needs to get rid of. So why do we want to do it? We need to think about that as well. So I don't want you to worry about, if I'm gonna avoid salt, I'm gonna have some sodium deficiency. It's not true. It's not understanding how the body works. And interestingly enough, if you just eat a variety of fruit, variety of vegetables, you don't even need to know what's in every one of them. Because some people ask me, what's so good in lettuce? What's so good in carrot? I said, you know what? You don't really need to know that. All you need to worry about is just having a little bit of variety, not endless variety, just a little bit of variety, have it fresh, have it raw. That's all. And nature will take care of your body. I mean, as long as you connected to nature, you're attached to nature, it's gonna happen. Now, I'm just gonna summarize what I said before about not everything that you eat is actually gonna nourish you. Shelton said it in a very nice way. He said it that you're not gonna get nourished from the quantity and the quality of the food you eat. You can only get nourished from the quality and the quantity of the food that your body can assimilate. It's a very simple concept to understand, and I am sure that everybody can agree with that without being a physician, without learning biochemistry. It makes sense. It's like everything we do in life. I mean, we buy food into the house. The fact that we bought it doesn't mean we're going to use it. Sometimes we have excess and we throw things away. Sometimes we lose things around the house, and it doesn't have to be just food. So the fact that you brought it into the house, if it's food and if it's anything else, doesn't mean you're going to use it. How many times we bought a t-shirt or a top or a dress or something, and then we change our mind and we never wear it. So we do that with food as well. When we're not, and this is the law of efficiency. If we're not efficient, if our body, the system is not efficient, then it doesn't matter what you eat, when. And actually Shelton said another clever thing. He said that the condition under you eat, the condition under which you eat, are more important than what you eat. So we got even to the spiritual realm, to the mental realm now. And because you will find that in natural hygiene, the mental and the physical are interconnected all the time. You can't really separate them. It's literally like the human body. People say, I'm a soul and I'm a physical body. You're not a soul and a physical body. You are a soul in a physical body. It's not two different realms or it's the same coin with just two sides. So you will find in natural hygiene that you can't really separate, and that's why, again, I'm not blaming, but I'm just want to introduce you the fact why we are so sick is because the medical establishment don't deal with the mental realm. When you come to a physician with a problem, a headache, a tummy ache, and he's not touching that, he's not starting with a conversation about who you are, what you do, what is your job, how is your relationship, questioning your way of life, your habits, your way of thinking, and he's just going straight into symptoms and medication, he loses you. So the first thing, even the Rambam is demanding the doctors to, before it goes to medication, before everything else, you need to understand the patient. You need to talk to them. You need to engage with them. You need to question them. Sometimes the problem will be solved along the way, even before you even got to medication. So this is something, because the way the system is built, physicians don't have time to know you. In the old days, it was the village doctor who knew everybody in the village, and he knew your parents and your children and your aunties, and that's why they were so successful, because they understood that health is something holistic. It's not, okay, you have 5 minutes and you are just a group of symptoms, and I know these symptoms because I've seen them before, so tick, 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 come to me if it doesn't work. This is not, that's why we are failing, but maybe there are a few people who don't operate like this, but this is what they learn in medical school. They don't have the time to come, to see you, to sit with you, to talk to you, to interview you. So they're missing the major point. So when Shelton said the condition under which you eat are more important than the food you eat, he was talking about how important is the mental health, the mental poise. And everything that is spiritual or non-physical has a physical expression. For instance, when you see a scary movie, I know you don't, but when you do, when people watch a scary movie, their heart can pump quicker. The movie and the vision is completely non-physical, but the heart that beeps quicker, it's totally physical. So something that is non-physical creates a physical reaction, and that's immediate. Okay? When you are excited, it's the same thing. When you are embarrassed, it's a non-physical, it's an emotion, but you can get redness. Or when you're scared, you can get, all the blood will go away and your lips going to turn white. So there's a lot of things that are physical that we can see, non-physical that we can see the physical expression straight away, because these two things are just one entity. You can't say this is physical and this is non-physical. So we know that in diabetes, for instance, they say that the most of the cases with diabetes rooted in an emotional stress. Divorce, God forbid, death of somebody close, leaving a job, changing house, something that for a child, even diabetes type 1 can be related to changing school or, divorce in the family, something that was a shock, because a shock get you stagnated. And the whole point of health is flow. That's health. When you not get stagnated, when everything flows, then this is health. And that's the same with emotion and with everything else. So the conditions are very important, and we talked about it with the Rambam, who says that you only eat when you're hungry, and you eat 3/3 of your capacity. Sometimes in some areas he said, I think in the winter he said 3/4, and in the summer 2/3, or something like that. Don't catch me in my word, but the idea, basically, don't go too strict about it. The idea is to leave some gap, some part empty. So finish the meal when you can still have some more and you still have room, because the stomach is elastic and it needs to expand and shrink and expand, and if you fill it up completely, then then you get tummy ache. Then you want to drink, because the warm water softens the food, and then you feel a bit more comfortable. So don't fill your tummy to the edge. So eating when you're hungry, eating when you're happy, eating when you're calm. These all the conditions. Eating when it's not too cold, when it's not too hot. We know naturally that if it's too warm, we don't want to eat. Not having food that is hot, like people sometimes they eat something that is very, very hot, like a boiling soup, and they just inhale it to their throat. They don't chew, they hurt their teeth, they burn their gland taste, and they can't even enjoy the food because it's so hot. If you eat food in the right temperature, you will be able to enjoy more and more of its taste. Like ice cream, for instance, it's something that it's not in the right temperature. So for the body to process and banana ice cream, as opposed to processing a ripe fresh banana, it's a completely different story. Even if you take just bananas, put them in the freezer, and you're not gonna add anything, you're just gonna put them in a food processor and create ice cream, it will take you about 3 hours to process, let's say, 3 bananas frozen. And if you're going to have them fresh, I'm talking from experience, it's going to take you 40 minutes. And this ice cream with those 3 frozen bananas, it's going to be heavy. Because why? Because the body is not programmed to break down, assimilate, and process food that is not in its temperature. The body is 36.7 Celsius, so the body would rather you consuming water, food, and air as closest as possible to that temperature. And if you don't, the body has to invest energy in order to bring it to that temperature, like a thermometer. So if it's too cold, then it needs to heat up, and then it can break it. What's happened in the meantime? Fermentation, rot, bacteria. Because every time you chew things, you start processing food, then it's a game of time. You want to be able to utilize the nutrients as quickly as possible. That's why food combination is so important. Did you understand what I just said? Mm-hmm. Because when you chop the banana, yeah, we all understand the oxidation process. When you cut an apple into small pieces and you leave it on a plate outside, it's gonna get rot. You see all these brown, bacteria is gonna start working on it to break down the sugar. Now, the same things happen in your body. So when you're chewing, then this process happens inside your body. So what you want to do is you want to help the body assimilate these nutrients as quickly as possible, because otherwise they're going to get oxidized. That's what we call free radicals. And free radicals are, in a way, the opposite of health. They swallow everything that we actually need, and they create acid. So every time we talk about antioxidants, people say, oh, eat that, it has loads of antioxidants. Why is it so important to have loads of antioxidants? Because when food gets oxidized, it has all these free radicals. So the antioxidants, they push off these free radicals. So it's this battle between these two. So you want, when